All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Lucent Truth, and we are the Lucent Troupe. Starting from the top, DJ Dave Darko. Aren't there some other pseudonyms that you had, DJ Dave?
Your Sith Lord and Savior, Jerry Curl Mullet.
Jerry Curl Mullet, I like that one. Next, below DJ Dave Darko is Johnny Mozzarella.
What's up? What's up?
Right below him is Mutundo 83.
What's going on, y'all?
And to the left of him is King 81, a.k.a. Arsenal Beats.
In the building. What's going on with everybody?
And I'm your gracious host, G-Flux the Great, G-Flux the Magnificent. All right.
We can't talk.
Now, first, everyone can see my screen, right? The screen that I'm sharing.
I can see it if I stand up and look over my.
Oh,
Yeah,
all right, you can see it. All right. So today we're going to be talking about two historical war epic films that came out in the early 2000s. One, of course, being Ridley Scott's Gladiator, that I believe came out in 2000, starring Russell Crowe, and the second one being Troy. I can't remember the director's name, but it stars Brad Pitt, and he plays a character named Achilles.
Wolfgang Petersen.
Wolfgang Petersen, exactly. The reason why we wanted to talk about these two films is because there's always been a controversy among our group over which film is better. Some of us lean more on the Gladiator side. Some of us lean more on the Troy side. Now, before we get started, when we really give our opinions, I want to do, some basic, give some basic information about the two movies. We're going to start with Gladiator first. And this is the basic summary of the movie. Gladiator is a 2000 epic historical drama film directed by Ridley Scott and written by David Franzoni, John Logan, and William Nicholson. The film was co-produced and released by DreamWorks Pictures and Universal Pictures. DreamWorks Pictures distributed the film in North America while Universal Pictures released it internationally, blah, 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 blah. Oh, yeah. Basically, it stars Russell Crowe. What's his name? Joaquin? How do you pronounce his name?
Joaquin,
whatever.
Joaquin.
I'm gonna call it Joaquin Phoenix, Connie Nielsen, Ralph Moeller, Oliver Reed in his final role, Djimon Hounsou, Derek Jacobi, John Shrapnel, Richard Harris, and Tommy Flanagan. Crowe betrays Roman general Maximus Decimus Meridius, who is betrayed when Commodus, the ambitious son of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, murders his father and seizes the throne. Reduced to slavery, Maximus becomes a gladiator and rises through the ranks of the arena to avenge the murders of his family and his emperor. Next, we're going to talk about the critical response. Now, to be fair to the Gladiator fans, Gladiator is actually more highly critically rated than Troy. And I think that's only fair to mention that. Critical response. Upon its initial release, Gladiator opened to general positive reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of an A on an A+ to F scale. The performances in the cast were praised by critics, with Crowe and Phoenix being considered by critics as the main highlights. Kirk Honeycutt of The Hollywood Reporter said Crowe solidly anchors this epic Gladiator movie. The first in nearly 4 decades by using his burly frame and expressive face to give dimension to what might otherwise have been comic book heroes. Now, I have a little bit of a problem with that because I'm like, one of my main problems with the Gladiator film is Russell Crowe. I don't dislike Russell Crowe, but I thought he was wrong. I thought he was wrong for the part. They say his burly frame. The entire movie, I just thought he looked doughy. He didn't have like a commanding physique or form. He didn't look heroic. Maybe they were trying to make him look like a normal guy. I don't know, but that was one of my problems. But anyway, I won't get too much into that. And it's funny that it says might otherwise have been comic book heroes, which is really popular movies now are comic book movies. But anyway, in the positive review for the Wall Street Journal, Joe Morkington said that Crowe doesn't use tricks in his role to court our approval. He earns it the old-fashioned way by daring to be quiet, if not silent, and intensely. Implacably strong, and that the film rests on Mr. Crowe's armor-clad shoulders, and he carries it remarkably well. Empire's Ian Nathan, giving the film 4 stars, wrote that Phoenix displayed gleeful hamminess in his performance. Writing for the film, Nathan expressed that while Phoenix displayed that while it's all grand opera and driven by sweeping gestures and pompous, overwritten dialogue, it is prone to plain silliness, especially in granting us the big showdown at the close. But the sheer dynamism of the action, coupled with Hans Zimmer's lavish score, I did like the score, and the force field of Crowe, still makes this a fearsome competitor in the summer movie stakes. Jeff Andrew of Time Out, and it's either Jeff or Jeff, praised the film, saying that the cast is strong, notably Nielsen's and Commodore's facilitating sister, and the late Oliver Reed, unusually endearing as the Gladiator owner. I had problems with him, but the pacing lively, and the set swordplay and the scud catapults impressive. Roger Ebert, our friend, who was otherwise critical in his star review, praised Nielsen for having the most depth in the entire film. On the other hand, Camille Paglia, who called the film boring, badly shot, and suffused with sentimental PC rubbish, criticized Crowe and Phoenix's performances. Now, I don't think the film was badly shot. I think it does have some PC rubbish. And I don't particularly care for Crowe or Phoenix's performances in this film, but we'll talk about that later. Next, this is the cast and crew, not all of it, but some of the main ones. Of course, we have Russell Crowe in the main role as Maximus. We have Joaquin Phoenix. How do you pronounce his name? Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus, or the son of the Emperor. Connie Nielsen as Lucilla. Oliver Reed as Proximo. I believe he played the Ludus. He owned the slave or the gladiators. Richard Harris as Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor. Gianna Facio as Maximus's wife.
Doing this.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'll go.
Djimon Hounsou, who I thought was the worst actor in the movie. Now, some of it might have been his lines. He had the worst lines in the movie. The absolute worst lines in the movie.
He did. It was poorly written.
Yeah,
Poorly written.
And some of the other,
because he's a good actor.
He's all right.
I think he's a good actor.
I think he's average. I think he's an average actor. The rest of them I won't go, but those are some of the main ones. Next, I actually wanted to show a clip. And the reason why I wanted to show this, fair use. The reason why I wanted to show this particular clip, because this is when Maximus reveals his identity to the current sitting emperor. And I thought this particular scene had some of the best writing as far as the dialogue. It was a bit anticlimactic. It still worked, but I thought it was a bit anticlimactic. I don't think the build up to it was quite right. I think it should have been a little more beforehand before they did the big reveal. But anyway, we'll watch it.
Guys. Your fame is well deserved, Spaniard. I don't think there's ever been a gladiator to match you. As for this young man, he insists you are Hector reborn. What's it, Achilles? Why doesn't the hero reveal himself and tell us all your real name? You do have a name.
My name is Gladiator.
How dare you show your back to me? Slave! You will remove your helmet and tell me your name.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true Emperor Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance, in this life or the next.
All right, I'm not going to play the whole clip. That was basically the lines that I really wanted to let people see and hear, because I thought that was some of the best. Look at John. Look at Uncle Dave. I thought that was some of the better writing. But I personally think the good writing in this particular scene suffers from a bad buildup. But we'll get into that later. The next clip I wanted to show was actually Maximus's, because one thing I wanted to say is I think we'll get into that. The next clip I want to show is Maximus's death, and because I thought this particular scene showed how some of the good the cinematography was in the movie. Because overall, if I had to say in what ways Gladiator was probably better than Troy, I think Gladiator edges Troy out with the cinematography. I've only seen Gladiator twice. The first time I watched it years ago, not too long after it came out, and I didn't like it. I did not like it. I watched it again last night to prepare for this, and I have to say that the second time watching it, now granted I watched the extended cut, I didn't watch the theatrical cut. The second time of me watching it, I have a little bit more of appreciation for it. I watched it in HD, where I think, before I watched it in maybe some ways that wasn't the best. It definitely wasn't the best quality. So I got the full essence of it. But I still have a lot of problems with it, even though I think it is a better movie the second time watching. But anyway, here's Maximus's death.
Maximus. Maximus.
Quintus, free my men. Senator Gracchus is to be reinstated. There was a dream that was Rome. It shall be realized. These are the wishes of Marcus Aurelius.
Free the prisoners! Go!
Lucius is safe.
Go to them.
I'm not going to play the whole thing, but that one particular shot where you see him kind of like hovering above the ground, almost like he's transitioning into the afterlife. He did that. Ridley Scott used that technique a couple of times in the movie, and I thought it was particularly unique. It kind of reminded me of Spike Lee's use of like, of putting the guy on the dolly, and when he's going through some kind of almost like transformative or transcendental type of awakening, or it was similar to that. So I thought, that was pretty cool. And And just to kind of hammer home the cinematography point a little more, this next video, someone compiled some different scenes from the movie, and I just kind of wanted. We're not gonna play the whole thing, but I just kind of wanted to show some of it. Looks like we lost Orlando.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true emperor Marcus Aurelius.
I'm not gonna watch the whole thing because we can kind of move on. But I just wanted to say that Ridley Scott did direct this, and even though it's not one of my favorite movies, Ridley Scott has an eye for a good scene. You know what I'm saying? And he's directed my favorite movie of all time, and that's Legend, which I think came out in 1984 or 85. But
so did Alien too.
He did Alien. He did Blade Runner. I mean, he's done some amazing films. And I guess what I want to say is that this you could tell, that's one of the things I think that makes this movie probably stands above what I would probably say an average movie. I just think some other things about the movie is what I think kind of brings it down. But Ridley Scott knows what he's doing when it comes to cinematography. And I think by trade, he was an artist before he became a director, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, let's move on to Troy. Troy is a 2004 American epic historical war film directed by Wolfgang Petersen and written by David, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, produced by units in Malta, Mexico, and Britain's Shepperton Studios. The film features an ensemble cast led by Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, Sean Bean, and Orlando Bloom. It is loosely based on Homer's Iliad in its narration of the entire story of the decade-long Trojan War, condensed into little more than a couple of weeks rather than just a quarrel between Achilles and Agamemnon in the 9th year. Achilles leads the Myrmidons along with the rest of the Greek army invading the historical city of Troy, defended by Hector's Trojan army. The end of the film, the sack of Troy, is not taken from the Iliad, but rather from Quintus Smyrnius's Post-Thomerica, as the Iliad concludes with Hector's death and funeral. All right, next we're going to go to the critical reception. On Rotten Tomatoes, Troy holds an approval rating of 53% based on 228 reviews, and the audience score 73%. Well, now, what I notice about this is the critics seem to kind of give it like almost an average rating, whereas the audience seem to rate it more above average. 73% based on over 250,000 ratings. The site's critics' consensus reads, a brawny, entertaining spectacle, but lacking emotional resonance. Now, when I read that, I was like, what? Lacking emotional resonance? Like, Okay, now if they're comparing it to Gladiator, Gladiator is like almost too emotional. Like it's storybook like. It's annoying almost. But anyway, on Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 56 out of 100 based on 43 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B on an A+ to F scale. Roger Ebert, our friend, rated the film 2 out of 4 stars, saying Pitt is modern, nuanced, introspective. He brings complexity to a role where it is not required. I'm like, what? Like, if he didn't bring the complexity, you'd be like, he's just a brawny superhero. If he does bring complexity, you're like, that wasn't required. Get out of here, man. IGN critics Christopher Monfett and Cindy White praised the director's cut as superior to the early version. Now, I've never actually seen the director's cut. I was going to watch it last night, but there was no renting option. They wanted me to pay like $13. I'm not going to do that. I'll watch the director's cut later. Evaluating it with 8 stars out of 10. So they rated the director's cut pretty highly. Now, this is funny because here's some of the actors who also didn't like the movie. Peter O'Toole, who plays King Priam, I believe, of Troy, says, King Priam spoke negatively of the film during an appearance of the Savannah Films Festival, stating he walked out of the film 15 minutes into a screening and criticized the director, slamming him as a clown. Years later, Brad Pitt expressed disappointment with the film, saying, I had to do Troy because I pulled out of another movie and then had to do something for the studio, so I was put in Troy. It wasn't painful, but I realized that the way that the movie was being told was not how I wanted it to be. I made my own mistakes in it. What am I trying to say about Troy? I could not get out of the middle of the frame. It was driving me crazy. I become spoiled working with David Fincher. It's not slight on Wolfgang Petersen. Das Boot is one of the all-time great films, but somewhere in it, Troy became a commercial kind of thing. Every shot was like, here's the hero. There was no mystery. Now, there is no need for mystery in this type of film, so I don't know what the hell he's talking about. 2,
it's an adaptation. Never mind. Go ahead.
Well, the second thing I was going to say was, when it comes to, here is the hero. Well, he's not really a hero. That's kind of the whole point of the film. The point of the film is that, one of the underlying themes is, why do men want glory, and what are some of the despicable things men will do for glory, and questioning how you will be remembered, and some of the despicable things you might do to be remembered. You see what I'm saying? All this idea, there was no real hero. There wasn't even like a real main villain, So I mean,
Wolfgang Petersen, wherever you're at, I got it, bro.
I got it too.
I understood what you was doing, but
yeah, but I'll move on. This is the cast: Brad Pitt, who I thought did an amazing job. Eric Bana, he was Eric Bana. Diane Kruger, she played Helen, she was horrible. Orlando Bloom, he played the snively, kind of character, pretty well. Sean Bean, always amazing. He eventually became Ned Stark in Game of Thrones and many other films. Rose Byrne, whom I believe will be in the new Ninja Turtles movie. Brian Cox, freaking veteran, dude. Freaking veteran. This guy, he's just one of the greats. He rarely gets talked about. Brendan Gleeson, I think is he Scottish? He's another guy who's in a lot of different movies. Peter O'Toole, been in movies for forever. A lot of good actors in this. Next, I want to play a short clip, and the reason why I think this clip is important is because I think Troy does this better than Gladiator. How to begin a film, how to capture your audience. I'm not saying Gladiator did a terrible job. In fact, I think the first act of Gladiator is probably the best part of the film. It's the latter part of the film that I think where Gladiator just kind of it just kind of becomes mediocre. But this first part of Troy, it's like, okay, I see what this is. And that's the other thing I want to say. When it comes to action, when it comes to fight scenes, Troy destroys Gladiator. It destroys it. It destroys it. All the fight. Matter of fact, there's not one fight scene in Gladiator where you're like, okay, it's okay. They're not bad, but it's not like, okay, this is epic, or this is like, this sets the bar. Now maybe it did for its time, but because they were saying, because in my opinion, 13th Warrior was the kind of first film, historical epic type of film, war epic type of film before Gladiator. And in my opinion, 13th Warrior isn't, as far as how they shot action, wasn't that different from Gladiator. So you can't really say they set the bar because 13th Warrior did it first of that era. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, this is how you begin a movie, in my opinion.
This is my man. Achilles! Boagrius has this effect on many heroes.
Careful who you insult, old king.
King, Achilles is not with the army.
Where is he?
I sent a boy to look for him.
Now, I just want to tell the audience now, whoever put this together, they do some cuts, because they do show where the boy comes and gets Achilles. He's in his tent with women asleep. He gets on the horse, and the boy's like, I heard you killed 1,000.
Come on.
Yeah, I heard you killed 1,000 men, a whole bunch of stuff like that. And he was like, Boagrius is the biggest guy I've ever seen, biggest man I've ever seen. And I was like, I wouldn't want to fight him. Achilles gets on his horse, puts on his helmet. He's like, and that's why no one will ever remember your name. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. I'm sorry. The writing in Troy, it destroys Gladiator, because there were parts in Gladiator where there was some. Okay, I like that, but there's other parts where it's just horrible. It's just horrible. It's not good, or mediocre, I should say. But anyway, here we go.
Perhaps we should have our war tomorrow when you're better rested. I should have you whipped for your impudence.
Perhaps you should fight him.
Achilles. Achilles.
Look at the men's faces. You can save hundreds of them. You can end this war with a swing of your sword. Think how many songs they'll sing in your honor. Let them go home to their wives.
Imagine a king who fights his own battles. Wouldn't that be a sight?
Of all the warlords loved by the gods, I hate him the most.
We need him, my king.
For now.
Is there no one else? Is there no one else? Who are you, soldier?
Achilles.
Son of Peleus.
Son of Peleus.
Achilles. I'll remember the name. The ruler of Thessaly carries this scepter. Give it to your king.
He's not my king.
All right, guys. That's how you begin a goddamn movie.
Brian, what version? This must be the director's cut.
I might
No,
be,
it is the director's cut.
Yeah,
This
because
is the director's cut.
I heard some weird
I'm
sounds
a-
in there. Huh?
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Like, and I've seen the director's cut. The theatrical, I think that the actual cut is actually better.
I've never seen it,
Especially this particular scene because the music is different.
Yeah, I was like, the music sounded off right there. Yeah.
The music is much different. It's much more.
Let's not get off into the weeds. The point is, that's how you begin a goddamn. And I'm not saying Gladiator had a terrible start because it was okay. It wasn't bad. But when I first saw that, I was like, oh, I ain't never seen no shit like that before. You know what I'm saying? Like that. It sets up everything perfectly. You know what you're about to see, because the one thing I like about this movie is it doesn't take a mythical approach. It approaches these mythical characters like they were actually real. Like these are the characters the myths were based off of. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's part. Remember when we would talk about this movie, and we kept trying to explain that too. It's like, no, you're not going to see the gods. They're human beings.
I was just telling Jesse today about it.
Who are wrestling with. Okay, are there gods? Are there not gods? It humanized it. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I want. Yeah. The second thing I wanted to show was probably, in my opinion, one of the best fight scenes in all of cinema. Just my opinion. Even better than a lot of kung fu stuff I've seen, because I think kung fu stuff overdoes things. But when you talk about telling a narrative through a fight scene, this is beautiful. It's just beautiful. The way the music and everything, how they did it, particularly Brad Pitt's Achilles and how he was moving. One thing I liked about this movie was Brad Pitt was middle-aged when he did this role, and I thought that worked because it shows you, okay, he's good enough to still be in his kind of like in his prime, but young enough to be in his prime, but seasoned enough to understand warfare and fighting, right? And I think you see that in this fight. But it also, I think it speaks to the sort of like the nature of manhood. You know what I'm saying? And how like what we perceive to be honor, you know what I'm saying, can sometimes blind us. Because to just kind of preface this, Achilles was about to leave. He was about to take his new woman, whom he fell in love with, and leave, right? He had given up on this idea of glory and having his name remembered and stuff like that, right? And his cousin is killed by Hector. You know, it was a case of mistaken identity, but still, it drives Achilles into kind of like a rage for vengeance, you know. And you see that he just wasn't there to fight Hector for glory. He was there to destroy him, destroy his image, destroy his name. You know what I'm saying? And you see that in this fight. But anyway, I'm gonna play it. Oh, and by the way, I just wanted to say, I think the scene also shows some really good cinematography. Like, I do think Gladiator edges Troy out in cinematography, but Troy is no slouch with cinematography. But anyway.
I've seen this moment in my dreams. I'll make a pact with you. With the gods as our witnesses. Let us pledge that the winner will allow the loser all the proper funeral rituals.
There are no pacts between lions and men. Now you know who you're fighting.
was you I was fighting yesterday. And I wish it had been you. But I gave the dead boy the honor he deserved.
You gave him the honor of your sword. You won't have eyes tonight. You won't have ears or a tongue. You will wander the underworld blind, deaf, and dumb, and all the dead will know. This is Hector, the fool who thought he killed
Achilles. I'm sorry.
Don't take my glory.
Bad assery. Look, here's what I'll say about one thing I'll say though about the action and fighting sequences when you compare Gladiator and Troy. One thing I like about Troy, especially in the duels, is that there are more wide shots. You can see their footwork. Whereas in Gladiators, be quiet, please, quiet. The great one is speaking. The great one is speaking. Anyway, but in Gladiator, it's like it's all these close-up shots and fast cameras. It was hard to see what was going on sometimes. I just didn't think it was as good. Lastly, the last video I want to play for Troy is one scene that I thought where the acting was particularly good, and it's the scene where the Greeks have the cousin of Hector as a captive, right? Because she was like a priestess in the temple, and they caught her in the temple, and they gave her to Achilles to kind of have almost like as a sex slave. But he's actually somewhat of a noble character. You think he's gonna rape some woman or whatever. So he's nice to her. He actually even falls in love with her. But the reason why I like this scene is because I think it humanized the mythical characters, and in many respects, both Hector and Achilles are agnostic. They acknowledge the gods, but I don't think they really believe in them, right? Or they're unsure about whether they're real or not. And I thought this scene was beautiful because it shows it demonstrates to the captive woman that the man that's before her is not just a brute, and she even acknowledges that he's actually quite intelligent, And I'm just gonna play the scene. Oh, wrong one. Sorry. Next one.
You hurt. Once you fight them, you have courage.
Fight back when people attack me. Dog has that kind of courage.
One thing I like about that particular little exchange right there is that it shows she's very feisty. I'll do it myself. Type of thing. That's why he just kind of like he just puts it. And that's another thing. The subtleties in acting I thought was better in Troy. But anyway, I won't interrupt anymore.
Eat.
I've known men like you my whole life.
No, you haven't.
You think you're so different from 1,000 others? Soldiers understand nothing but war. Peace confuses them.
You hate these soldiers.
I pity them.
Trojan soldiers died trying to protect you. Perhaps they deserve more than your pity.
And why did you choose this life?
What life?
To be a great warrior.
I chose nothing. I was born, and this is what I am. And you? Why did you choose to love a god? I think you'll find the romance one-sided.
Do you enjoy provoking me?
You dedicated your life to the gods. Zeus, god of thunder. Athena, goddess of wisdom. You serve them.
Yes, of course.
And Ares, god of war, who blankets his bed with the skin of men he's killed.
All the gods are to be feared and respected.
I'll tell you a secret. Something they don't teach you in your temple. The gods envy us. They envy us because we're mortal. Because any moment might be our last. Everything's more beautiful because we're doomed. You will never be lovelier than you are now. We will never be here again.
I thought you were a dumb brute. Could have forgiven a dumb brute.
And for all of Troy's extravagance, it seems like that I think that really make the movie, because I think that it shows, even in that, I think it shows the difference between masculine and feminine energy, and and it also shows you how well when they're compatible, or when they work well together, how people might fall in love, right? Because he could counter all her bullshit. Because she wanted to go on about the gods and stuff like that. He's like, well, why are you criticizing me when I'm essentially honoring the god of war? The god that in many ways protects you. Now, he ain't doing that great of a job right now. Well, actually, he is, because I can kill you right now. I have the power to do it, but I don't do it. You know what I'm saying? But I thought it was a particularly beautiful scene. I thought it was well acted, and I thought it was well written. There are a couple of scenes like that in Gladiator, but in my opinion, not nearly as much. Whereas I think the entire purpose of Troy was to, well, one of the themes was about being remembered, and how is one being remembered. I think it's just more sophisticated than the whole, oh, you killed my family, I want revenge, and but it's just my opinion. I think it's just more sophisticated. But I'll get to that later. But guys, let's have it out. Which one wins? We're going to talk about it. We'll eventually give our ratings. And what do you guys think? Which movie do you guys think is better? Gladiator or Troy? Anyone can just chime in. King 81, you go first.
On the spot. Man, this is tough, man. I really like both of them, man. With the action, I do feel like, Gladiator. I like the cinematography in that. I don't know, man. It's just the fight scenes, just on point. Yeah, I don't know. This is tough.
If you had to choose, though, you have to give one a higher rating over the other. Which one? You gotta choose, man.
I would have to go with Gladiator. Just because I like the cinematography in Gladiator more.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave Darko, I think your mic is muted.
You talking trash, Uncle Dave?
I've been talking shit for the last hour.
I thought you was. I kept looking out.
Dave ain't never this quiet.
If Brian can hear me in here, this lame place.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The fight scenes just did it for me. But like I said, the cinematography.
You think the fight scenes are better in Gladiator?
Of course.
No. The cinematography.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Demetrius? Or, I'm sorry.
No, I got something to say. I definitely got something to say. Troy all the way. Only thing I would give Gladiator is like costume design. But Troy is just blow better, one. Two, you got more engrossing the character. We've all heard about the Iliad growing up. We've all took literature classes. And it was overall just good to see that put into action. I remember when I first saw the movie, when I was skipping church.
On his way to hell, y'all.
Uncle Dave's mic's working now.
Oh, Sunday special. Oh, like I saw the movie, I was like, okay. And like everybody in the movie was good. Like from the intimidation factor of Boragrius at the beginning of the movie. But the sliminess of
Agamemnon?
Paris. Paris.
Oh, okay. I thought Agamemnon was more slimy than Paris.
Yeah, well, he was, but you can saw that he was power hungry. Agamemnon, I can't remember his brother's name, the King of Sparta, but you can see that he was just a glutton and a fool. That like the woman was too pretty for him. He was a 3 and she was a 10.
Yeah, he's
things like that. And so I think my favorite scene in the whole entire movie is when Priam, the king of Troy, comes. He sneaks in to recover Hector's body, and like he's sitting there mournful in front of Achilles, and he kisses his hands and he kisses his feet, and he's like, Achilles is taken aback, like, hey, like who are you? And he's like, this morning, he's bringing out, like, I've done something that no man has ever done. I've kissed the feet of the man that's killed my son. Yeah. And I'm like, that is great acting.
Yeah.
But when I think of, as much as I like Joaquin Phoenix, and I tolerate Russell Crowe, I'm not gonna say I like Russell Crowe because there's no movies that he's been in that just wowed me. Like all around acting was better. All around, like the fight scenes were better. Like I can gush about this movie. Like when they're invading, they're storming the beach. That's one of my favorite scenes. Like,
dude, is this one scene where I'm getting an echo? Where is that coming from? I probably got your thing on, Uncle Dave.
Mute my mic again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have to try to mute mine.
Hold my peace
a lot of things.
Well, wait. Let me just say this real quick because I wanted to add on to the part with King Priam. There's a scene. This kind of speaks to the cinematography for Troy. There's a scene where King Priam, right, is sitting on his throne and he's looking out over the walls, and you're just seeing 50,000 Greeks swarming the beach, and the camera's just kind of like zooming on his face. He's finally realizing like the true scope of what's about to transpire. I was like, yo, it was a good scene. Yeah. But I also wanted to say that, and me and Uncle David were talking about this a little bit before, and you can chime in if you want to interrupt me, Uncle David. But I think the story of Gladiator is actually pretty cool, pretty decent. The plot is where I have a problem. How things play out. Like I said, I think the first act of the film is actually pretty good. I think after he becomes a slave in the Gladiator is where the film kind of goes downhill. I was telling Uncle David earlier that I didn't buy him being so good as a gladiator so quickly. I also didn't.
Here we go.
No, these are my problems with the film. I also didn't buy.
I'm trying to catch you up, Brian.
Yeah, you got a bad echo going on.
I know. Every time he unmutes his microphone.
Let me mute that.
Yeah, I don't know why it does that.
Guys, don't let me just speak.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that that how things played out in Gladiator, I just thought was a little problematic. I didn't buy him learning how to be a gladiator so quickly because me and Uncle Dave were talking. You know, there's a difference between a soldier and a trained fighter or duelist. And this is one thing I think the show Spartacus did very well. Even though Spartacus was a trained warrior in warfare, when he got into that ludus, he was getting his ass whipped. Now, he had some natural ability, but that natural ability still had to be, and he did have a little bit of training because he was a soldier. But, you know, you saw him go through the process. It's almost like Maximus, he becomes a slave, he becomes a gladiator, he has one fight in the arena in the desert, and then boom, they're in Rome. So you didn't get to see the buildup of him befriending his fellow gladiators and him becoming a leader among them. They just kind of show it later on. It wasn't as impactful.
So when did Achilles build up in the movie Troy? When did he actually go through his hero's journey and grow? It's just like Gladiator.
Oh man!
Well, yeah.
He was already.
You're missing the point. Yeah.
Down. No, never mind. I'm gonna wait.
No, John, go ahead because you haven't said much lately. Because I know what you're gonna say. Because the point is Achilles isn't a hero in the movie. That's but is that what you're gonna say, John?
Not exactly. Not exactly. Yeah. But I don't wait my turn, man. Like
no, go ahead. This is your turn.
Oh, you finished Matunda?
Same thing. He's not a hero, and it's already implied from the beginning when Odysseus comes to Caesar. Like, hey, we need you. We need you to fight this war.
Implied. When he implied, motherfucker took out a giant in one swing. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. If you're gonna begin a movie, begin it like that. But that's not the point. The point is that Achilles is known for dueling. He's known for that.
Why did Achilles get good at dueling? They don't show that in the movie. You just take that idea that he's already good. So why do we have to watch Maximus go through this training series? Why can't you take it that if he's directly in the general's guard, he's already been trained somehow and he's already at an elite level of fighting?
That's a different type.
Dueling included.
That's a different type of training.
Here's a problem. Here's a problem with this movie. Not to cut you off, Matunda, but I just can't take it no more, man. Like, listen here, man. I mean, because the stuff that you're saying, Dave, it don't make no sense. But the problem with the movie is like, okay, Gladiator is just too much.
Okay.
Like,
when you're ready to speak, tell me, and I'll mute my mic.
Go ahead with your lame comment, John.
So Gladiator, the problem with Gladiator is, first of all, this movie's trash. Like I watched it a long time ago. I rewatched it again for this podcast, and my feelings are the exact same. And it's just like I want to give you the whole with the cinematography, but I just can't. And the reason why I can't is because if I want to see a nice scene, I go look at some paintings. You know what I mean? It's not just giving me a nice. It's not just giving me cinematography. It's everything together. So, okay, you give me this nice scene, but if there's nothing behind it, if you didn't build up any characters, if you didn't build up any emotion, then it's just that. It's just a scene. Well, I can just go look at a painting. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reason why I can't even give y'all cinematography, because I didn't feel anything. And throughout the entire movie, I felt nothing. I felt nothing for these characters. And the main reason why is because they try to put too much. Granted, this movie's 3 hours long. Well, it's 2 hours and 51 minutes to be exact. Troy's right around 3 hours and 20 minutes. So they're both
6 hours.
Excuse me?
Director's got 6 hours.
Oh, well, that's another thing. The clips that you showed, Brian, I don't think they really just don't, except for the part where he's talking to what's her name, Peleus. Except for that, the other clips, because they're taken from the director's cut. I've never seen the director's cut. I've seen maybe parts, bits and pieces, but I like the theatrical, because the theatrical, the music hits harder. It flows better with the scenes, especially that first scene, because in the director's cut, they like change up the music. Anyway, regardless, Gladiator is almost 3 hours long, right? But they tried to put way too much in this one movie, right? He is a general. Then he falls from grace, or is basically betrayed. He becomes a gladiator. He travels through 2 to 3 different lands, all the way back to Rome. He leads or he helps leads a military coup. And you have all these elements squeezed into
John,
3 hours.
Can I interrupt for just a second? And because I want to disagree. I think they did set up some emotion. I just think it's cheesy emotion. 2, I agree with you. I think the pacing is horrible after the first act in Gladiator. So I do agree with that. I think the pacing and the actual plot is why I put Troy above Gladiator, but I won't interrupt anymore. I just wanted to kind of add on to what you were saying.
This movie could have easily been 2 movies, and it would have been much better for it. If there was a Gladiator 1 and 2, the first act deals with him being the general, and then falling from being a general to becoming a slave, and then having to work his way up to an actual gladiator. And then the second movie, the actual him, the military coup and all that stuff, it would have been world better.
It'd been way
better.
Yeah.
You could set up a scene
because the parts.
Back to the point that I'm discrediting, because Dave said, well, you didn't have to have this build up with Troy. Well, you didn't need it. I'm gonna tell you why you didn't need it. It's because in the beginning of the movie, that is all the setup you need. This is one bad mother. You don't need to have because the director understood, like, okay, I only got 3 hours, so I can't give you this big long backstory with Achilles. How can I condense that to make my viewers understand this ain't the dude you want to play with?
I agree.
So I'm gonna give you this first 10 minutes and show you why he's a G. If you missed that, hold on a second, Dave. If you missed that, go back and watch the clip, bro. You shouldn't need all that. That scene right there tells you everything that you need to know about Achilles and the things that he says. Matundo hit it right on the head. When Odysseus comes and sees him, he knows. Like, look, we about to go over there and mess with Troy. Troy ain't never been been conquered. Can't nobody get over their wall. This is gonna be the what did they say? The greatest war that the world has ever seen. That his Menelaus' homeboy was just like, hey, this is gonna be the greatest war that anybody's ever seen. We need the greatest warrior. Who did he go? Who did he say? Odysseus, go get your boy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so before he can before he can even get up to where him and his cousin is, he throws a spear and it like hits a tree right next to him, and they're all like, Achilles. He shows you. He doesn't need to show you a montage of his training. Why? He's showing you through the feats that he's doing, and just the very first two scenes in the movie.
John, I just want to add. We didn't even get a montage. We didn't even get a montage of Gladiator.
You got nothing. It makes no sense. It made no sense whatsoever. Hold on a second. I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet, bro. No. I'm not done.
Everyone's guard.
I'm not done.
People are going to be around the Emperor.
No. I'm not done. I'm not done. Okay? And the reason why I'm not done is because one of your arguments is, he's a warrior or whatever, so they didn't have to show him. No, they did. Why? Because you might. Hey, what's his name? Kimbo Slice. Rest in peace. He was out here knocking people out on the street, but when he got in that ring. Why? Because it's a different type of fighting. It's the same thing. What's going to work out in the battlefield is not going to work when you're facing somebody man to man. That's the reason why Brian hit it. Oh, the great one, whatever his name is, he hit it on the head. Now, granted, the only thing I will give you is Spartacus. It was a TV series, so they had time to build that up. But the director understood that. Your boy Ridley Scott, come on, man. Come on. It don't make no sense. So they gave you time and they showed you like, okay, Spartacus just didn't come in the game like this. No, he had to be trained. It's the same thing. Or it should have been the same thing with Maximus. There should have been at least a montage. It's cheesy.
That's the point me and Brian was arguing. Spartacus came in at the bottom of someone's army. Maximus comes from the top.
Ain't true.
No. He was one of the top fighters. Spartacus was one of the top.
You don't even know Spartacus' military power.
Hey. Let Uncle David say his piece.
Thank you, Brian. Spartacus comes from the bottom. They're literally rented infantrymen that ran in battle. And the Romans came and hunted them down. Maximus has already started at the bottom of the Roman army, and he's at the top of it now. That means he has X amount of wars, and he has his conventional battling, one-on-one combat part of their training, most likely. But if you're going to be around the general, you have to be. You're telling me because he's around the general, he can't hold a sword one-on-one with someone?
No.
And he's fought that many wars?
I didn't say that he couldn't.
No, what Brian was saying. He could be out there and still be.
I didn't say that.
Wait.
That's not even what Brian said.
Wait. He made it. Mute, Uncle David, mute. Because you made a claim. You made an erroneous claim. I never said that. I never said that he would just be lame. I never said Maximus would be lame. The point I was trying to make is a similar point that Johnny Mozzarella made, and that is there with the military. They average out ability, right? They give you the basics that you need to survive, right? Even some of the highest ranking people, but in something that's specialized, like gladiatorial, whatever. They specialize in dueling and killing. So no, it's different. It's different. It's like taking, say, a guy who's a Marine, who's probably has a special forces guy who's probably has some training, and you put him in unless he was trained in MMA, you put him in MMA, he's gonna get taken out. Now his discipline that he has will probably have him adapt to the training faster than your regular person. But you still have to mute real quick, Uncle David, because I have an echo. I'll let you get your speech. Yeah, but so that was the point I was making, is that you never got to see that, and to say that Maximus started from the bottom is not true, because they actually show in the movie that he was childhood friends with the emperor's son and the daughter. In fact, him and the daughter were in love at one time. So he actually comes from a noble family, and he probably did get training. But there's a difference between nobles training and their dueling and whatnot. And actually, when you're training, you might die. They're not going to let their sons die. No, you use the base training how to defend yourself and stuff like that. And yeah, he has some war experience. I'll give him that. But that's different from a gladiator. It's like saying it's almost like saying difference between maybe like a Golden Glove winner and a top tier boxer. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm talking about. That's the only point I'm trying to make, is that we should have seen that. That's my problem with the Gladiator film. We didn't get enough development of him as a gladiator. It's almost like, why even call this movie Gladiator? You didn't even get to see that aspect of it that much. And the parts you did get to see were kind of lame. Some of the fights and stuff were kind of lame. They weren't that good. And even with him building camaraderie with the other gladiators, you didn't get to see that. So when they all died, I didn't feel anything. But you contrast that with something like Spartacus, that's what I was saying. But and that's why I think John was. Hold on, John. That's why I think John was right when he was talking about Spartacus, because it's more of a long form thing. They had time to express that, and that's why Gladiator really should have been like maybe 2 or 3 movies. But John, before you say, I want Uncle Dave to be able to respond. I'm going to mute up.
I get what you guys are saying. It would be nice to see it. But if at best you can't say you don't know how much training he has. At best. But like I said, usually you see people, if you see the guys who are beside the president, there's no joke about how well they shoot and fight. They hold that position. They can't be beside the president, protecting the president, and not be the best. It's a requirement for the job. So if you're in the emperor's camp, and you're beside the emperor, and you led people to battles. I think your mic is.
Yeah, I did.
You've led people to battles. There has to be some thinking about it, that this guy's really good. Now, when we talk about the fight scenes, you guys may or may not like it, but when I look at Troy, when I look at the footwork, the way they move in Troy, I'm not impressed. I'm just not impressed. I've seen better Sho Kosugi films.
David, Uncle Dave, you couldn't even see the footwork in Gladiator. There was no footwork. It was just flashing stuff all over the place. And let me ask you, can you mute up real quick, Uncle Dave? Can you mute up? Let me ask you this. Yeah, let me ask you this. Do you think an average Secret Service person who's defending the president can beat the best MMA guys that fight in the UFC? And I'll mute up.
In a fist fight, on a street fight, or in a ring. And this is totally different, by the way. This is totally different. You talk about people trained to kill versus people trained. If you let that guy that protects the president go buck loose in that MMA in that rule, he's going to kill that guy. He's going to kill that MMA fighter, and it's going to be very quick. He's going to go for throat slabs and whatever they train with, and he's going to go ahead and he's going to take him out. Now, if you say he can't do his killing, and they got to sit there and armbar and wrestle, yeah, you'll get him. But he's a killer. One's a fighter. But in the Gladiator, both the soldier and the gladiator, they're both killers. An MMA fighter has to keep the gloves on. They have to keep the rules intact.
Can I
say something? Please, go ahead.
Wait, before... And the reason why I'm going to push back on that is because I'm not talking about, hey, they're having an MMA match. I'm talking about, okay, yeah, they're about to fight to the death. Because a lot of people want to say, oh, well, MMA, these guys, it's just a sport. But the reality is, the reason why they have to do things like tap outs is because you're going to kill the person if you keep going. You're going to kill him. You're literally going to kill him if you keep going. You're going to choke him to death. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like, unless the Secret Service guy uses weapons, I'm talking about, an actual, hand-to-hand fight. Hand-to-hand. You know what I'm saying? No, I don't think that's true. I think the UFC guy is probably going to kill the average, unless something's changed where the average Secret Service guy are trained MMA guys. But even then, I'm talking about the best MMA guys, because that's what gladiators are. They're the best.
That's going to be a good podcast. MMA guy versus Secret Service member, who's going to win? I know who will win the shooting part. That's hands down. You know, and maybe I'll give you guys some credit, maybe. Because they go light on hand to hand because they shoot everybody in the Secret Service, right? He's definitely going to be a better shot. But I would be willing to bet that it would be when that fight started, that Secret Service member would come out with something so secretive and dirty that guy be dead before he knew it.
Bullshit.
If not, then the president should be hiring MMA fighters to defend him instead of pulling them from the military.
That's overly specialized for what they need to defend the president, and I think that's the point that you're making. We're talking about people who are specialized in killing, versus a soldier. You know what I'm saying? Who specializes in following orders. You see what I'm saying? And now, in Maximus' case, he specializes in giving orders. You see, so that's the only point I'm trying to make. I'm not saying Maximus. And that's the point I'm trying. I'm not saying Maximus will be incapable of being a good gladiator. What I'm saying is, we didn't get to see any kind of training, any kind of build up. It's just one day he's a slave who was refusing to fight when he was trying to fight the Arnold Schwarzenegger looking dude. The next he's in the arena killing people, talking about have you been entertained? Which I'm sorry, but the one, the one line where Achilles is like, "Is there anyone else?" It surpasses that. That's just a better line. I'm sorry. That's a better line. But I digress. The larger point is, I think that's where Gladiator suffers. I think the pacing of it, and that's why some of the scenes, which should have been very powerful, were somewhat anticlimactic. Like when he reveals himself to the Emperor, when he dies, that type of thing. It was a bit anticlimactic because there wasn't enough buildup. I think John was right. It was like the thing was a 3-hour film, but they was like, why is all this stuff happening so quickly? Because it really should have been like 2 films. It really should have been. Whereas I think the pacing in Troy is way better. Way better.
I got something to say.
I'm sorry. I'll mute up.
Okay, I have something to say. We see Achilles, main character. There's the first fight scene. He talks to the beach invasion, the fight with Hector, and then you probably had the final climax. Within all 4 of those scenes, you see how badass he is. Versus Maximus, you see him all through this movie, and I'm like, okay, he has the same skill set he had in the previous scene. Yes, like you see the peak of his badassness when he's fighting the Praetorians when they first get captured. After that, you know exactly what he's about. But with Achilles, it's a constant one-upmanship over his last fight. Like when he hit the beach and he threw the spear at Hector's buddy, you saw the shock on Hector's face. And you see that. When Maximus, okay, you threw a sword at a crowd of defenseless people. Congratulations. You fought a tiger. Congratulations. And then the last fight scene when he's fighting Commodus. Let me finish, Brian. Hold on. He getting that shit on Commodus. Like, man, there was no, I am invested in this guy's fighting skills. Achilles, he was from the beginning to the end of that movie, you knew how bad he was.
Yeah, I just wanted to. Oh crap! I keep doing that. I just wanted to.
Greatly said.
I don't know why he's doing this.
Troy.
Oh, I'm
Troy. Dave Darko. Troy.
I wanted to add on.
I keep rubbing it in.
I wanted to add on to what Demetrius was saying. That to be fair, these are similar movies, but they're also different types of movies. I personally think Gladiator tries to pull more on your heartstrings. It's very sentimental. They try to do all the sentimental stuff, which to me gets corny because it's like, all right, I see what you're doing. It's not that it's bad. It's just it's kind of annoying. It's like you see it 1,000 times. That's why I think the themes. I personally think the themes in Troy are a little bit more sophisticated, and I think that's why I hated Gladiator the first time I saw it, because one of the scenes, there's one scene, right, where you get to see the Emperor's son Joaquin Phoenix, and he's training out in the snow. It's like, oh wow, he's probably gonna be a badass. You know, he's Emperor's son. Maybe he gets the best, whatever. And you know, I know him and Maximus are eventually gonna go down. But the whole rest of the movie was devoted to turning the Emperor's son into this like mentally
bitch. I'll say it for you, bitch.
And it's not a good villain. I personally think a better route would have been that Maximus and the Emperor's son were like close friends, and they both went into battle together, right? But there's underlying jealousy there, but they both saw each other as brothers, right? And he's almost Maximus equal when it comes to being able to fight. And I think that would have been much better because it would have made the last fight scene much better. Because y'all tell me, because when the Emperor stabs Maximus, was there poison on that thing? Like, why did that injure him so much? Would he get stabbed in the heart or something?
It's probably where he stabbed him at, and because he's having a fight, adrenaline, the blood is flowing even more. I mean, you don't take so much blood loss before you pass out.
Wasn't he cheating fighters in the arena? He would give them like dual swords. The Emperor, he was fighting gladiators too, but he would give them a dual sword. I believe he might have drugged some, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while, but he did cheat people that he would go into the arena with. So he might have did Maximus the same.
That wasn't in the movie. He didn't depict that in the movie.
Yeah, he did.
The point I'm trying to make.
He didn't fight in the movie.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that we always say it. It's not always true, but in many cases, a villain can make or break a movie. I thought Joaquin Phoenix's character. I mean, I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to do the crazy emperor type of route or whatever. But for me, if you're going to set up this great gladiator type person, you need to give him a great opponent. You know, and I didn't. That just wasn't it. I know it was more psychological, but it got to the point of just, you know, ridiculous sentimentality. You know, to the point where he was like basically saying he's going to grape his sister. He's going to bury him of pure blood, whatever. And the whole. I was like, all right, it's just too much. It's too much. You know what I'm saying? But yeah,
Brian. Basically, what you just described was the Count of Monte Cristo. And you hit it on the head. And I think that's what made that movie so good is because
totally agree.
God, I can't remember their names now. But anyway, the two main characters, they were best friends. They grew up together. One was rich, one was poor. But the rich guy was very jealous of the poor guy. But that's basically what you just described there. And Gladiator would have been.
The rich guy was also a better fighter.
Yes, well, yeah. Because he was rich. he could train. Anyway, the point is that it made their confrontation when they finally did confront each other at the end. It made it much more of a climax, where Commodus in this movie, he was just a weak, pathetic child the entire time. I could not stand him. I could not stand his face. I could not stand how he emoted. He was just the worst. He was the absolute worst thing.
To be fair, though, I think that was kind of the point. That was kind of the point. But what happens when you do that, though? What happens is you make the villain basically a cartoon villain. Like Kang.
Right.
There's nothing about him. He's just pure evil. Yeah, it's just it's boring. It's boring.
No, that's not necessarily true. It depends on how you do it. Game of Thrones did a marvelous job of that. With King Joffrey, he was weak, he was pathetic, he was evil, but he made it really good bad guy. The problem
the reason why he made a good bad guy is because there were so many other people in Game of Thrones that in the gray area, so you saw why he was that way. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Okay. I give you that.
Because his mother basically he's inbred. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Two, his mother is a terrible mother. She didn't do a good job raising him. Tywin Lannister clearly didn't step in and raise the boy properly. You know, he just kind of let his mother and him. And I think he even kind of mentioned that later on. But in Gladiator, you don't see that. You don't see flashbacks or you just hear his father talking about it. Oh, if your fault as a son is because of me.
Oh God, that whole scene.
The emperor, the former emperor, the one that gets murdered. He is probably one of the dumbest characters. One of the dumbest characters.
Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius. The guy is just stupid. It's like, look, if you're gonna make, and this is the other thing I don't like. I don't like plot stupidity. Like, I like plots where, okay, you put a dilemma in there, and you make the characters act smart, but because the dilemma is just so bad, no matter what they do, they're still in a problem, right? Kind of like in Event Horizon. Lawrence Fishburne was not a dumb kid. Like, we're getting the hell out of here. But it just, the stakes was just so high as far as the sheer threat that they were facing. There was nothing they can do, right? It's the same thing with. That's my problem with Gladiator. It's like, okay, if you're an emperor and everyone says you're smart and you've finally unified all of what you wanted to be Rome, right? Why would you tell someone in secret that you're going to make them the emperor over your own son? You don't understand what kind of turmoil that's going to cause? Yeah, you know your son's crazy. You don't know he's probably going to kill you. It's one of those things. It's like it's plot stupidity. It's plot-induced stupidity. It doesn't make any sense. So therefore, I can't suspend my disbelief. You know what I'm saying? And that was one of my problems with Gladiator 2. I don't think it set the villain up well. It was always by him being like, slimy and those types of villains work, but you usually have to balance that off with something else. And that's why I don't think the climax worked as much. But yeah, I've been talking enough. I'll let other people kind of chime in.
And that's what I meant earlier when I said, well, there's no emotional content. And the reason why I said you said it before, you was just like this movie they try to pull on your heartstrings, and it's been done so many times before. That's why you didn't really care for it. Where I don't have a problem with their pulling on my heartstrings. It's just do a better job of it. I hate to keep going back to this, but Spartacus, because it had so many episodes, you can do it. But the reason why I go back to that is because I think of, like, he was going to die, right? His father was going to die, or they wanted him to get murdered by his son, basically. But because everything happened so quickly, they didn't really set it up. They didn't have enough time to set it up, or they just did it the wrong way. So it came up like, okay, when he died, first of all, how he died was lame. He like squeezed him to death. I mean, I guess he was like he broke his neck, but it was just a lame scene. Like how he did it was lame. So, and I go back to Spartacus, Gods of the Arena, and the reason why I compare those two is because it reminds me of Titus. Right, Titus, he understood pretty much everything that was going on, and at the very end, everything that he saw coming, even though he couldn't quite see it, like he could see glimpses of it, he could see red flags of it, and he was a smart character. He was by no means dumb. You know what I'm saying? The only reason why he met his demise.
Can you explain to the audience who Titus is?
Titus is the father of Quintillus, who is the son, or he's the one who eventually takes over. What is it? The Lanista. He becomes the Lanista of the Gladiator school. But in the Gods of the Arena, it goes back. It shows you how he takes over and what happens with his dad. And his dad eventually gets killed by his wife, Lucretia. But it was one of those things where it's just like he wasn't
John, for the audience's sake. Can you just kind of get to the point, because if they've never seen
the point is that he gets killed by his daughter-in-law. So it's one of those things where it's just like he knows it. He knows that there might be something, but it's because it's so big. There were so many moving parts that he just couldn't get out of the way of it. So he still but they built it up. So when he died, you felt it because you knew who he was as a person. You knew the love that he had for his son. You knew the love that he had for his business and the slaves and the gladiators. So you felt it. You saw this man for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. You saw his son acting like a child. He kills him, but there's no emotional content. You know what I'm saying? And how he dies.
Quoting that Bruce Lee right there.
You lack emotional content.
But it's true. So and that's why. And that's one of my major issues with this film is, like I said, like, okay, yeah, you have a nice scene here, you never have a nice scene there, but I'm just watching it, but I don't feel anything. It's because you literally didn't set up anything. Like I don't really care about these characters, you know. I really don't want to get too long-winded, but even his wife and his son. They don't show you any flashbacks. You don't see them on screen except in like little tidbits of like I think when he first gets injured, when he's getting away or when he's basically escaping his own execution. He starts visualizing like, okay, they're getting to my house, and then he kind of wakes up because he starts to fall like on the horse. So he starts to get up like, oh no, I gotta hurry up, I gotta get there. So you see like little bits and pieces of his wife and his son, but you didn't see him, you didn't hear him, you didn't see any interactions, you didn't see any nice little flashback to really give you. You heard a couple of words that he may have said, like to the king or the emperor at the time, like, "Well, I would like to go home." When he's asking him, like, "What do you want?" You know what I'm saying? Like, "Well, I want to go home." You know, but because you didn't really see him, you don't really feel anything. The only real scene that I liked from the whole movie that I was just like, okay, yeah, that kind of got me, was a part where you see their feet dangling.
Yeah.
And he walks up to him, and he's like all a mess, and there's like spit and snot coming out of it.
That was pretty good.
That was like the only scene where I was just like, yeah, that should hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like that should hurt.
I just realized something. He wasn't sold into slavery. He was picked up off the side of the road.
Yeah, he was picked up. Yeah, because remember after he buried their bodies, he was just laying there, and really he was sick because he got cut. And what is a sepsis or whatever? It got like infected. So when they picked him up, so anyway, regardless, that was really the only scene I felt. And there was another scene in the movie where once Commodus realizes that he's alive and he's angry at the general, right? He goes out there and he's going to have like this public execution of the people that he thinks is responsible. And it's all long and drawn out and dramatic, and he says all this and he says all that, and it's like I don't even know who the hell these guys are. Like, okay, you kill them, okay. I mean, I don't know. Who cares? Yeah, I saw they're just some soldiers, okay. Yeah, I saw. You know what I'm saying? It would have been more dramatic. Yeah. It would have been more dramatic if he would have killed him. At least I saw that guy, like the actual general.
I can agree with you on that point because I saw what they were trying to set up there, but because they never established that, hey, there's some good sides to the Romans too, right? You didn't show their brotherhood and stuff like that. And these are just two characters that you don't even know who they are. You've never seen them before. So when they get killed, it's just like, yeah, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to show the Emperor's crazy and he's making this other guy. I get it, but I see what you're saying. It kind of fell flat for me too. I was like, all right, I see what you're trying to do. Yeah, I see what you're trying to do, but no, it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me.
I mean, like I said, no, there's no emotional content. I don't care about any of the characters at all. The only one I even remotely care about is Maximus, and that's only because I have to watch him the entire time. Even the sister, I mean, they try to have like all these scenes with her, with her and her brother and her being scared, but she didn't really seem that scared. I mean, there was a couple of times where she told people that she was scared, but the acting wasn't there. And it's so surprising that everyone was just like, the acting in this movie is so good. The acting in this movie is so good. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it from any of the characters. I didn't get that sense like, my God, I am terrified. Even her tears look fake. I was like, what did they do? Draw those on? You know what I'm saying? So I was just like, well, she didn't really seem all that scared. And even the scenes that she has with her brother, like, yeah, he says some things that are like the one part when she was just like, well, are you afraid of the dark? And he kind of turns and he looks with his little crappy face and he's like, yes, or whatever. But the scenes between them weren't that creepy. They weren't that like off-putting. So it's just like, so when she was like, well, I'm scared, well, nothing happened. You know what I'm saying?
I will say, John, when when he's like telling her son a little story, and they're like by the candlelight, and he has his arm around the son, and she's sitting there. Then he starts talking about history and about how people betrayed this certain emperor, but it's really he's talking about himself, and she starts crying. I was like, okay, right there. Actually, I thought the acting was pretty good. It's just everywhere else in the movie, I thought he was just kind of overacting, and he's being overly slimy, and I didn't like him as a villain. Now that might be just a personal bias, and I think because I think people, when it's overly done like that, it can speak to larger audiences, and that's why movies like Fast and Furious are so popular. But when it's a little bit more subdued, like in Troy, where he's telling a homegirl about the gods, or it's a little bit, the theme's a little bit more sophisticated about like being remembered or having glory, you know what I'm saying, or the type of things you might want to do that you might have to do to get that type of glory. I think sometimes goes over people's heads, not to the point where they don't understand it, but it doesn't like pull on their heartstrings, and all that stuff like that. I'm like, to me, it's like some people would say Gladiator is a more sophisticated movie, but I think that's wrong. And they would say Troy is a more adventurous action, and I think it is more action oriented. But when it comes to his themes, I think it's more sophisticated. Whereas the Gladiator is just more like fanciful. I mean, he even dies and goes to heaven and all that stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's just like, Yeah, whereas Troy, I think, is more humanistic in the sense, like, because there's a couple of characters that say over and over again, I think Achilles' mom tells him, he's like, look, if you go to Troy, people will be speaking of your name for thousands of years. If you don't go, you'll find a wife. You know what I'm saying? You'll have sons, you'll have daughters, and they'll remember you, and maybe even your grandkids will remember you. But soon they'll be dust, and then and your name will be forgotten. And you see Achilles kind of like looking off into the distance when she says it. To me, that's just a far more sophisticated scene than almost anything in Gladiator. Almost anything.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
I hated that kid in Gladiator. I hated him from the beginning of the movie to the end.
You're talking about the sister's wife. I mean, the sister's son.
Yeah, I hated that kid.
He was all right. I didn't have a problem with him.
He's a terrible kid in the movie.
What? That's random. He was all right. He's fine to me.
Like watching those scenes.
Don't like children.
I hated that kid, man.
He hates all children, y'all.
Oh my god!
I didn't. I didn't have a problem with the kid. I just think that, matter of fact, the one scene where he goes and visits the Spaniard, Maximus's character in prison, I thought was actually pretty cute, and I thought it was cool too because it kind of signified, okay, the emperor's probably going to be here, So that's when he put on the mask. So I didn't have a problem with the kid. I thought he was fine. One thing I want to mention, guys, they are talking about working on a sequel to Gladiator.
There's already motion because it's going to be the kid. Like the kid's going to be grown up. And I don't know where exactly they're going to go with it.
Well, where they're going to go is apparently that kid is actually Maximus' son. His bastard son that he had with the emperor's daughter, and they wanted Chris Hemsworth to play the role. Now, I don't really care about that story. The story that I thought was cool was this one I'm about to read. This was their first script I think they had for the second one. It says, however, not long after the first movie's release, Nick Cave was commissioned to write a new draft of a sequel script, with the project leaning much more heavily into the fantasy genre, describing the plot as a deity versus humanity story. The premise would have seen Maximus in purgatory before being rescued as an immortal warrior, fighting amongst the Crusades, World War II, and the Vietnam War, with the ending revealing that in the modern day time period, the character now works for the Pentagon. Admittedly, it's much more likely that the older Lucius is a more logical angle, but it's hard not to hope that the fantastical Gladiator 2 is the one being crafted right now. So I thought that'd be kind of like a fun movie if they did that. But I just wanted to mention that. By the way, this is a badass image of Achilles. This is actually a figure.
That actually is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But only thing, like I said earlier, only thing I'll give Gladiator is the set design and the costume design. And shout out to MF Doom for the mask for Gladiator. That's where he got his mask from. But other than that, there was nothing that really. Like every time Troy comes on, whether I'm just streaming it or whatever, right? I can watch that movie through and through. Gladiator is just Gladiator. It's just
what's funny. It's
background
the
noise
opposite
to
for
me.
Uncle Dave. Let Uncle Dave chime in on that one.
Dude, I think I have started Troy maybe a couple of times. The first time I watched it, when it got to that fight scene where they're outside, and I'm like waiting, and I'm like, there has been no magic nor gods yet in this movie. And it got to that, and I saw that lame ass battle with them walking around tired in sandals. I was like,
John, who's that remind you of? Who's that remind you? Rest in peace.
Sounds just like
rest in peace.
John,
I honestly don't think people got this movie, man. I don't think
they
got
didn't.
it.
They didn't.
I don't think
Listen
they got
here,
it, man.
Just to go back to what you said, like that old saying, a movie's only as good as its bad guy. I think with these two movies, I think it really is applicable to these two movies because Agamemnon versus Commodus is such a stark difference. And one of the scenes that come to mind, because they go over the top with Commodus, right? They make him do all these things, say all these things. By the way, there was a scene in there where he starts hitting the bus of his dad. Yeah, it's the worst. Anyway, regardless, just crap, man. Just utter crap. But there's a scene in Troy where and that's what I love about Troy. There is no good guy or bad guys per se, as far as Achilles and Hector, but they're all bad people on both sides, and that's what to me that's what makes the movie so beautiful, because you can relate to it. Just like in real life, there's always good people on both sides. You know what I'm saying? It's just they're pawns basically in the larger game. But when Menelaus goes and talks to his brother, and he was just like, we got to go to Troy because I want her back. I want my wife back because she flees with Paris. Mm-hmm. And Agamemnon was just like, well, of course you do. You know what I'm saying? Because all Agamemnon cares about is power. He wants to take over Troy so he can unite all the states of Greece and Troy, and just that's all he cares about. He doesn't care who he has to hurt or whatever. But he's not dumb.
Yeah.
And that's the thing you have to understand about Agamemnon. Yes, he's the conqueror and he's bad and he wants to do, but he's not an idiot. So he knows he can't just go over there. He needs some type of so he uses his Menelaus's
rage,
rage and ignorance as a way to get what he wants. But there's a part when he says, "Of course you do," and he hugs his brother. In the shot, they show his face.
They show his face,
and his face is just like, I don't give a shit about none of what you got going on. I'm going over there to take over Troy. Mm-hmm. And even when they get there, you're thinking like, oh, okay, well, Menelaus, he's just trying to be a good husband, even though you see him cheating on her or whatever. Yeah. But even when he gets over there and they start coming up with these plans, because basically, Hector's just like, nah, I need to go home. We ain't trying to hear nothing what I got to say or whatever. He was like, look, just kill him where he stands. He was just like, you can have the city. I just want my revenge.
Yeah.
And it just shows you like Menelaus probably, is a decent person, okay, but he's willing to do something to like regain his honor or whatever. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It really brings all their characters are really three-dimensional.
Yeah,
and you can see like everything that's good about him, but you can also see all the bad stuff.
Yeah. I think Achilles even mentions that. He was like, this isn't about some woman. This is about war. I mean, this is about power. This is about you know what I'm saying? And on the flip side, King Priam, he tells Helen, he's like, I fought in many wars in my life, some for land, some for power, some for glory. He was like, why not love? You know what I'm saying? Right. So everyone has their own motivations. So yeah, I agree. All the characters are much more three-dimensional. Even Agamemnon has some redeeming qualities, because when his brother dies, he's like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's like, hey, you just kill my brother like that? And his brother was somewhat in the right. His brother, he was in the right. Paris was in the wrong. You know what I'm saying? Even though Menelaus was kind of a boisterous jerk, you know what I'm saying? He did have some redeeming qualities, and he was wronged in some way. You stole his wife. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's John. You said it beautifully. I think the characters in Troy are far more three-dimensional than Gladiator. Gladiator is just like I said, is 1, 2. Oh, you killed my family. Oh, I become a slave. Oh, I gotta. I mean, even Spartacus did that shit better than Gladiator. Right. Because one thing I liked about Spartacus was that Spartacus had to grow beyond his wife. You know what I'm saying? He had to become larger than that. He started seeing the world for what it really was as he was a slave, right? And he had to go through these different phases. Remember, you never really figure out what his real name is.
Right.
Remember at the beginning of the series, he was like, "That is not my name."
That's my name. Yes.
He becomes Spartacus.
Oh,
you know
man.
what I'm saying? And that's what Gladiator is lacking.
Listen here, man. We can have a whole podcast.
Yeah.
Just talking about Spartacus.
Maximus doesn't become a gladiator. He doesn't become a gladiator. You don't see that process. You just say, "Oh, my family died. I'm gonna get the best of the emperor because I'm gonna take off my mask and all stuff like that." And some of it was kind of cool, but overall, man, it was 1, 2. It was 1, 2. Yeah, it's like okay, and maybe that's why when I first saw it, I was like, "This is shit. This is shit." Now I don't think it's shit. I don't think it's a shit movie. I disagree with John. I think it's okay. And I will say this. Ridley Scott is a perfect example of how not to overdo cinematography, because there are some named what's his name, Zack Snyder. That guy overdoes everything. And everyone talks about how great he is. I'm like, everything he does is overdone. Same thing with that Michael Bay guy, just overdone. Like there is such a thing as overdoing something. You know what I'm saying? And every time you watch a Zack Snyder film, there's only like maybe 2 or 3 films I like that I think are pretty decent films of Zack Snyder.
Some envy, y'all.
Huh?
Hearing some envy, y'all.
There's no envy. I don't think. Why would I be envious of somebody who's terrible? He's horrible. He's not a good director.
Are you talking about Michael Bay? Or you talking about Zack Snyder?
Zack Snyder and Michael. Well, yeah. I don't know as much about Michael Bay films. I just know Transformers and the Ninja Turtle stuff. I'm sure he's done some other things that I maybe have liked, because he did Bad Boys, didn't he?
Yeah. Bad Boys.
I like the first Bad Boy, but I know more of Zack Snyder's roster, and he's a very hit or miss director in my opinion. You know.
So is Ridley Scott.
Most Ridley Scott movies I like.
He's got 3 that you named.
Well, those are the most popular ones. He did one called The Duel that was just great. It has
The Duel.
It has Harvey Keitel and somebody else. Man, it's a good movie.
He actually did Black Hawk Down too. And I was like,
yeah,
and I really don't even like war
movies. That was a good movie. Yeah, that was a good movie. Yeah.
Black Hawk Down was a good movie, man. Don't you?
Yeah, Blade.
Black Hawk Down was good.
Alien. Legend. Blade Runner. I mean, it just goes on and on. You know, he has some hits, dude. He has some hits. He's up there with like.
I don't know. He's kind of like. I think his best stuff was the stuff that he did in the past, though.
Well, no, I mean, I think most directors of his age, or the stuff they did in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, yeah. I think is some of their best works. No, yeah, I agree with that. But you guys want to move to like final thoughts and rating?
Yeah, final thoughts.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna go with Gladiator first. DJ Dave, how many Lucent bulbs do you give Gladiator?
I'll give it 4. I won't. 1 out of 5. I'll give it 4. I won't say it's perfect, but it's definitely a good movie and it's definitely rewatchable. I've seen it 2 or 3 times.
Okay. All right.
Orlando, you better vote with me, man. I'm watching you.
Okay. We're gonna move on to Johnny Mozzarella for Gladiator. Give us your final thoughts and your rating.
I give it a 2. I mean, I'm cutting it down, but there are some things in the movie that I guess are okay. It's not horrible, but it is bad. Like I'm sorry. I do think it's a bad movie. Yeah, it's bad. It is mainly because of the writing. The writing is not good, and I think he tried to condense too much story in a short amount of time. Even though I know 3 hours is a long time, but it's a short period of time when you're trying to put that many elements into one movie, and I think that's what kind of killed it. So yeah, it's a 2. It's a 2.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to Matundo83. Give us your final thoughts and your rating for Gladiator.
I'd rather go to church.
So what's your rating, man?
After rewatching it, this was probably my lowest. I'll give it 1.5.
Wow. All right. Okay.
Hey,
I don't think it's that bad.
He said it was
All right. King 81. What's your final thoughts and rating?
For Gladiator, I'll give it a 4. I'm right there with you, Uncle Dave, on it, man.
Just $5 endorsed.
I'm right there.
All right. Okay.
No bribes. No bribes. If I knew we were taking bribes, yeah, that movie was the greatest movie ever.
For me, guys, I think that the plot is what kills it. I do like the cinematography. The acting, there's like some places where I like the acting and some places where I'm like, I don't know. There's some places where I like the lines and there's other places where I'm like, oh man, this is terrible. So I believe it or not, I think this is an overrated film. I think it's overrated. I think it's much too. And to be honest, even though it's a big budget film, I think it's an average film. I give it a 2.5. I don't think it's a terrible movie. I don't think it's that great of a movie. It's a 2.5. I think it's an average flick. I think it's. I don't know why. I don't know what the appeal is with the critics or even the audiences, or why they think it's much better than 2.5. Because again, I think for the whatever good acting is in there is taken down by some of the bad acting. Whatever good writing is in there is taken down by some of the bad writing. It is kind of a mismatch, or not, or a kind of what's the term I'm looking for? A
mixed bag.
A mixed bag, yeah.
Oh.
And now I did read up that there were some problems during the production of the movie. I don't even think they had the script finished, and I think it kind of shows when they were making this movie. Matter of fact, I don't think the script ever got finished. The guy died before he finished writing the script.
Yeah, he did.
So I think that to me it shows, and I think maybe because it was the first of its type that got popular, because the 13th Warrior didn't get popular. It didn't have the same marketing behind it when it came out, even though it came out before Gladiator. But I think this was the first historical war epic of its type, and maybe people kind of gravitated towards it first. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it falters. So I think it's a 2.5. I think it's an average flick with maybe some above average cinematography. But overall, when you combine, when you look at all the elements all together, I think it's an average film. So we're gonna go back to DJ Dave Darko and give us your final thoughts on Troy and your final rating. Which, by the way, you didn't even finish watching the movie, so it's almost like, you know. But yeah, go ahead, DJ Dave. I'm gonna mute up so I don't get an echo.
Definitely no rewatch value. Fight scenes, didn't like them all that much. I'd give it probably about a 2.5. And that's it. And if somebody asked me for the advice, should I watch it? I'd be like, hey, you can watch the clips in the trailer. Skip to the fight scenes. Maybe that's the best part, even though they're not all that great. And turn it off and go to bed like I did.
You know what I think is the most revealing thing about this entire podcast? He had nothing really to say about Troy other than the fact he didn't have magic in it, and that was the one thing that you know, it's like, oh, there's no magic in it. I was like, what the world? Anyway, I won't continue on with that. Let's go on to Johnny Mozzarella. Give us your final thoughts for Troy and your final rating.
I mean, God, it's so tough. There's just so many parts in the movie that it just sticks in my mind. I mean, even rewatching, I think I probably watch it at least once a year because it's just that good of a movie. And every scene, Every scene,
yourself.
like I can't. There's not really much of the movie that I really just dislike or can't get through. The ending maybe is a little anticlimactic, but that's only because the fight scene between Achilles and Hector was just so amazing. Like, how can you top that? But even with that said, this is a solid 4.5. Yeah, I'll give it 4.5 bulbs.
Okay. Let's move down to Matendo 83. Give us your final thoughts on Troy and your Lucent bulb rating.
Watch that movie again tonight.
You know what's funny? I'm gonna do the same. I think I'm gonna rewatch it again.
They doing this out of spite, y'all. That's just that they just try to get at me. That's all. They don't want to see that movie again.
Just to have solidarity with my brother Johnny Mozzarella, you don't even have to bribe me.
All right. So what was your rating? You said
4 out of 5.
You said a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 4.5.
Okay, 4.5.
Reason why I give the reason why it's if I had skipped church for this movie, I'm gonna have to go back to it. It has to be a good movie.
All right, so let's move on to King 81. Give us your final thoughts and your final Lucent bulb rating for Troy.
Okay, my final thoughts on it. Like I said, I enjoy both
Hang
movies.
low, man.
Yeah, I enjoy both movies. But I would say, with Troy, I'm real big on having the bad guy or basically have a purpose wise and things like that. No, not the average, just cartoon bad guy type of thing. But I would say I would have to give Troy a 4.5 on that, just with the different avenues and stuff, with the good and evil all in it. So, yeah.
So what'd you give Gladiator again? Was it similar? 4.5.
4.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So you actually gave it higher? I thought you liked Gladiator better.
Oh, I like both of them. I was just like, torn while I said it. So, but just, hearing the fact about, with
Don't be scared, man. Come on, say you hate it, man. Come on.
No, man.
Push you into that. Say you hate it.
I like both of the movies, man. But I definitely would stay with the bad guys and stuff. Yeah, I like the first wise and that. So that's what took the cake on it right there. So sorry, Uncle Dave. You can keep your $5.
For me, I think that I think this movie it's not a perfect movie. I don't think it gets a legendary rating. There are a few performances in it. The lady that plays Helen, in particular, Eric Bana. I liked his role, and I even liked him as Hector. I even liked his lines. I even kind of liked how he delivered them. But it wasn't that. He's not that convincing. But Eric Bana is one of those actors that I don't think he could deliver a line the best. But I liking him, sort of like Nicolas Cage. Like Nicolas Cage is the pinnacle. Like he's the best actor of all time. But I like Nicolas Cage, kind of like Will Smith. I think Nicolas Cage is better than Will Smith. But people like Will Smith. But Will Smith's not like
Keanu Reeves.
Oh yeah, Keanu Reeves is better. He's not like a great actor, but I like watching him. I like seeing him in movies. He's a likable guy, and that's how I feel about Eric Bana. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I say something? I just want to make a point. O.J. Simpson was Will Smith in the 90s. I'm just saying that until he killed somebody.
Okay. Yeah. But I just wanted to. I just think that there's a couple of flaws. I think when it comes to some of the acting, so I can't give it a legendary rating. But I think this movie, when it comes to themes and how the themes are portrayed, I think makes it an above average movie. On top of the good cinematography, on top of the good action, on top of the good directing, on top of the good writing, on top of a lot of the good acting that's actually in it. So I give it a 5. I think it's a 5 bulb movie. To me, it has a lot of rewatchable value. I think some of the themes are timeless to the extent that when John was talking about the characters being three-dimensional, I think this movie speaks more to being human than Gladiator does, and therefore for me it has more timelessness to it. I mean, there's an one of the oldest surviving song with notes. I forget what it's called. It's a Greek song, but the song is basically about living your life to the fullest, like and having your light shine its brightest while you're alive, because tomorrow is not promised. That's what the song is about, and it's a good song. If you guys get a chance to listen to it, I can't remember what it's called, but it's a Greek song, and I think that type of concept is timeless. You know what I'm saying? And Achilles even talks about that when he tells the girl, the gods envy us because, when we're young, when we're at our prime, we'll never be as beautiful as what we were at that point. And so it's fleeting. So you appreciate it more. Whereas the gods are immortal. That's why the gods are hedonistic in many respects. You know what I'm saying? Especially the most powerful ones like Zeus. Everything becomes about pleasure. They even kind of hinted that in the new Thor movie, even though that movie was terrible. But I think
guess who's the main actor? Who's the actor of Zeus?
Russell Crowe.
Who's the actor of Zeus?
Russell Crowe, actually, yeah. So I think the themes put this movie above, and how they're explored put this movie above many other movies of its type. So John, did you hear my rating?
No, my bad. I had to. Carter and his girlfriend just got back from their prom night.
Oh my God, Carter and his girlfriend.
I know, right?
Carter.
I didn't know. I had to go open the door. Carter. What was your rating?
I gave it 5, and my reason was I think that the small amount of flaws in the movie is more than made up for the greatness, and I think the themes and how they're portrayed are timeless, and I think that puts it above, it being just an average action flick. It's almost Shakespearean in many ways, whereas Gladiator, it's almost like Troy is it's almost like Troy is the Matrix, whereas Gladiator is like Fast and Furious. Both franchises are popular. A lot of people love them, but the Matrix has way more depth. Right. And that's kind of how I see Troy. I think Troy has more depth to it as a flick than Gladiator, and I appreciate that a lot in film. So I gave it 5 bulbs. I think it's 5 bulbs. Yeah.
On that somber tip. Like, rest in peace, Lance Reddick, man. I found out that earlier today, man.
You said it what?
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
Lance Reddick passed away.
Who?
Lance Reddick.
Huh?
Wire voice actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who it is.
Bald black guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't watch The Wire.
Oh,
yeah.
You saw John Wick?
He's in the John Wick.
Did you ever see John Wick?
I haven't seen the John Wick movies either.
Guys, I'm gonna have to let you guys go.
Yeah. I'm about to wrap it up. So this has been basically a review of both the movies, and I think Troy won. I think Troy won the versus. I think it got the higher.
Damn, I lost it.
Yeah, you did. Because you have horrible taste, but it's all right. It's all right. That's all right.
We get a shame.
But the audience, will the audience decide? I actually think the audience might agree more with you, Uncle Dave. Gladiator is more highly rated than Troy. But,
for a reason. That's all I'm going to say.
But we'll let the audience decide. Please chime in the comment section. Let us know what you think. And till then, is there anyone else?
Lucent Troupe Studio.